That sounds great, yeah. I can hear you right now. I'm just trying to switch over to the camera. Let's see. I'm getting a crazy echo on my end, but that should be fine. Yeah, it lets me know that we do have a bit of a delay here, but that'll be okay. Can you see and hear me right now on the screen? All right, excellent. Yeah. Well, welcome everybody to beautiful southern Wyoming. We're here digging up a duckbill dinosaur, and I'm glad that I can show you around. So, the quarry is right down here, and we've got some of our volunteers. We've just shown up a few minutes ago. We're getting kind of an early start because of the time difference. We wanted to make sure that we have everything in order to be able to show you during the event. This echo is really distracting. Shoot. Is there anything we can do about that, you think, Matt?
Yeah. No, imagine like,
Okay. Okay. Perfect. That sounds great. Yeah. See you in a sec. Well, there we go. That's much better. Don't have my own voice echoing 3 times in my ear. You can't believe how distracting that is. But yeah, welcome to Wyoming. Welcome to the Late Cretaceous Almond Formation. We're digging in rocks that are about 73 million years old. And we've got a crew of volunteers and paleontologists here from across the country. Some from Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
I got Eric right here. Yeah, where in Pennsylvania?
About an hour northeast of Pittsburgh.
All right.
Indiana County.
Yeah, Indiana County?
Yeah.
All right, Indiana County. Any audience members, make some noise. Yeah. We got Ethan right here.
Ethan out of Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
Happy to be here. Not a scientist, but I'm happy to plaster.
We're great. We're glad to have you here. Shoot,
The man's dirty.
Need all the help we can get here. We've got Nick Hornacek here, also
Hello.
From Pittsburgh.
From Pittsburgh, fellow volunteer in the Paleo Lab at Carnegie.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for coming.
Yeah, working hard out here. Any Pittsburghers there in the museum right now? Make some noise for us. Oh, come on, you can do better than that. We can't hear you all the way over here in Wyoming. Get louder. And we got Luke over here.
What's going on, everybody?
Our boss man for the day. Yeah, Luke, where are you from?
I'm from Maplewood, New Jersey.
All right.
Essex County, baby.
Jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then here, last member of our crew, this big dead duck-billed dinosaur.
Oh,
So-
yeah. Big dead duck.
This is a hadrosaur under this. We just capped this yesterday. We did this live on stream. That was a ton of fun. But yeah, this is the protective plaster and burlap cocoon that we put over these fossils in order to protect them during transport, protect them from the elements, and just keep everything together until we can get it back to the laboratory. And those hardworking preparators can open this up and start cleaning those bones, get them ready for study, for repository, and then get them ready to possibly put them on display. We're really excited about this because odds are fairly high. Trying to, temper my enthusiasm here, but, odds are good that this is a brand new species of duckbill dinosaur. So, yeah, and for those of you who are wondering, what is a duckbill dinosaur? Why is this important? What do they look like? I've got some little visual aids that I can show you here. Yeah. So, this is an artist representation of a Saurolophine hadrosaur. Actually, 2 of them right there. So these are plant-eating dinosaurs. These are some of the biggest dinosaurs, probably the biggest, in this geological formation. And yeah, these are, I think, Critosaurus or Griposaurus right here. So classic plant-eating duck-billed dinosaurs. Ours here is potentially bigger than these guys. It's a big animal. And yeah, we're pretty excited about that. It's going to be a lot of work to get it out. And you'll get to see some of that today. So is a skeletal drawing. Shout out to Scott Hartman, skeletaldrawing.com. He's a very accomplished paleontologist and artist. So far from this skeleton, we know that we've got a femur, it looks like, probably a tibia. We've got some vertebrae from the back. We've got a bunch of these ossified tendons here. This like bony latticework of tendons that actually turn from soft tissue to bone over the course of the animal's life, which is pretty cool. And yeah, we've also got some fragments of jaw and potential skull from last year. One of the biggest questions that I get out here is, how did this site get discovered in the first place? And last year we had a volunteer named Logan. I think Logan and Tren may have been out prospecting at the same time, and they stumbled across this site. So the way that works is they were walking along through here looking for fragments of bone along the hillside, and they found some. So that's how we find dinosaurs in the first place. We don't use any, fancy computerized equipment or anything like that. It's just a good old Mark I eyeball. So they were walking along here, they found some bone fragments, and then followed them up the hill to where they were eroding out, and they found some bones in situ. So they basically traced the bone fragments up to the source, and here we've got a dinosaur buried here. So far this summer, we've dug this great big hole and found a whole bunch of different bones. Most of them are obscured underneath that plaster jacket, but in a few minutes, I'll get the guys together, we'll take that tarp off, and we'll show you some of the bones that are exposed that we haven't jacketed yet. There's some pretty big ones. Again, this is a huge animal. But yeah. Also, I don't want to be too neglectful of my Twitch chat right now. Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing well. We will be doing more jacketing today, Deathsaurus. Supplies over there that I'll show you. There we go. So, of course, in field paleontology, we only have the most sophisticated and expensive and sought-after gear, like this fine fabric straight from Paris. I believe it's called burlap. This is burlap. These are old coffee bean sacks in here. Burlap, yes. If it's not from Paris, then it's only sparkling gypsum. Yeah. No, that's my plaster joke. I'm jumping the gun here. Anyway, we've also got plaster of Paris, which is not actually from Paris, but it makes it sound fancier. So this is how we make a jacket like this. You can kind of see some of it. We take this burlap, we soak it in the plaster of Paris, we stick it over the top, and then this dries and hardens. Again, almost like an old time cast or something like that. This is a method that was first devised back in the 70s. Yeah, and we've been doing it the same way pretty much ever since. It's one of those things where it doesn't seem very high-tech or sophisticated, but it's hard to improve on something that's so elegant and simple. Yeah. And then we've got various digging tools as well. Most of those are put away right now, but you'll see a few of them over here. We use whisk brooms, like this, for clearing away loose debris from the site as we're digging. And then some of our hand tools, like this. This is an ice pick. And so it's fine tools like this that we use for chipping away the rock from around the fossil. We want to in order to be able to tell the full extent of the bones, so that way we can jacket them properly and get them out in one piece. And then of course we've got our brushes and stuff like that, soft brushes, which we use for various things. The rock is soft enough we can even use the handle of the brush for digging. We've been very lucky at this site. The rock is pretty soft in a lot of places, but there is a lot of it. Our biggest challenge, though, is going to be getting this thing back to the museum. Because as you can see, this is an enormous jacket right here, and it's going to be very, very heavy. This thing's going to weigh, what would you say, Luke, like well over 1,000 pounds?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe 2,000?
It's getting up there towards 2,000, I think. When it's going to be fully plastered and everything, it's going
to be huge. Yeah.
We're going to have to put wooden braces on it of some kind, some sort of...
Just to keep it from flexing and breaking?
Yeah, some form of structural reinforcement.
And so this is most of the way up a hill right here. That's a very steep ravine down there. We're not probably going to be able to carry this thing down by hand. And so we're talking to our good friends at the Bureau of Land Management about maybe letting us borrow a helicopter next year so that we can actually get this thing down onto the bed of a truck and then take it back to the museum. So it's going to be quite the undertaking. But it often is when you've got a really big dinosaur that you're trying to excavate. Good stuff. And there we go. We've got more of our bones exposed there now. Let's go take a look at that.
Can you do the tape label for this guy?
Go.
I think these were
Paler Vaughn says wheelbarrow all the way to the museum?
here. So
Not likely.
just have surface material there.
Sounds good.
There we go. Let's take a look at some of these bones here. This is our biggest one. Is right up here.
Yeah, the lighting's a little rough right now.
Yeah, but I'll see if we can still make it work. So this up here is the head of our femur, we think, which is the thigh bone of this animal. And this extends all the way down to here. So this is a big thigh bone. This is potentially like a T-Rex sized animal. A huge duckbill. So again, thigh bone is gonna be right here on this guy. And yeah, if that thing is, a meter long or longer, this animal could be the size of, I don't know, a small bus. It's difficult to come up with an analogy for an animal this big. It would be, I don't know, larger than an elephant.
It's kind of beyond human comprehension in a way.
It's an animal this big, and just, even just the bones themselves are enormous. Try an animal in life, it kind of boggles the mind. So yeah, femur going right here. We've got all of this stuff concreted on the top of it, so there's all kinds of like ironstone concretion on this, so it's difficult to actually tell the outline of the bone. But take my word for it, the knee is about here, and we think that we've got a tibia right here, shin bone, going this way. So we might actually have an articulated leg of this animal. And if we're really lucky, we might even have a foot right under here, which would be awesome. Again, big critter. Yeah, this is, it's gonna be pretty awesome. And Capping says, is it even possible to undercut a jacket that large? Yeah, it'll be pretty easy here. So our task for today is we're gonna be continuing to reinforce this jacket here. So we're gonna be adding more plaster and burlap. We're gonna see this thing we can cover, and then we're gonna start cutting underneath it with hand tools. We'll probably have to remove a bunch of this rock here to make a nice depression, and we'll have to eventually flip this thing over. That's gonna be a challenge, and we might need like 12 people here for that. And we'll have to do that by hand. It's gonna be good. Digging up fossils in the field can be a challenging enterprise for sure. A lot of physicality, but we're here for it. This is what we love doing. Nobody here on the crew is getting paid. We're doing this because we love it. We're doing this because we're curious about what our planet looked like 73 million years ago. We want to know what these animals were like. We want to know what this ancient environment was like. That's often the driving force behind science, is pure human curiosity. We want to know things. We want to be at the cutting edge. We want to figure out stuff that nobody's ever been able to figure out before. And we're tremendously grateful to the support we've been getting from the Carnegie Museum. So I hope everybody there appreciates that that museum you're at right now, if you're sitting there in the auditorium, they're helping make this possible. We are on the cutting edge of dinosaur science here, and that's exciting, Not to get melodramatic about this, but at a time when science funding is decreasing, it almost feels like science is under siege, putting this gently. We're fighting the good fight, trying to, trying to figure out the history of life on Earth and our place in it as human beings. All of this context is really, really important. And I like to think that, I don't know, there might be people in the audience right now, maybe some younger folks who might want to become paleontologists in the future. This is attainable. You can do it. Everybody here, grew up thinking about being on a dinosaur dig. They'd wanted to do this since they were little, and now we're out here doing it. We're living the dream. You can do it too. And your museum there in Pittsburgh is a great place to start. You should talk with with some of the folks who work there at the museum. If you're interested in volunteering or supporting the institution financially, they could use that. And you never know where that'll lead to. When I was in high school, growing up in the San Francisco Bay Area, we didn't have any dinosaurs nearby. But there was a museum there at the campus at the University of California, Berkeley. And I started volunteering there when I was in high school. Got to meet a bunch of paleontologists, got to work on fossils, got to get involved in research and curation. And that's why I'm here today, was because of that start that I got there at that museum. You folks who live there in Pittsburgh, you've got a golden opportunity where you've got a world-class museum right there in your backyard. And special. A chance to do this, and it's such a privilege to be able to share it with all of you. I'm deeply honored. So let's see. Yeah, it looks like we had a little bit of a signal drop there too. I'll explain how we're able to broadcast from here, out in the middle of nowhere, out in the Wyoming desert. This is a place where cellular signal is very spotty. The way that I'm able to broadcast is via satellite. So we've got our dish right there. We've got a little solar battery and solar panels, and that's what all of this runs on. It's less complicated than you would imagine. Pretty lucky that this sort of technology exists nowadays. Opens up a lot of doors for us to do some science outreach and to get folks interested and inspired, to educate the public. Again, it's a tremendous privilege to be able to do this. So, yeah. Oh, and Katie's there in the chat. Matt wants to know if you're ready for questions. Bring it on, Matt. Yeah, let's get them. All you folks down there in Pittsburgh, let's hear those questions. I've been told that I'm up on the big screen in the auditorium right now, and also, this is unconfirmed, but maybe also on the Jumbotron at Heinz Stadium. Shout out Heinz Stadium there. Unfortunately, you won't be able to ask questions. That's only for the good folks there in the auditorium at the Carnegie. But, yeah. No, not for real. That was a joke there, chat. I've got my Twitch chat here on my arm. But, yeah. Good stuff. Yeah, so Matt will probably be calling me in a minute or typing into chat. And we'll see if we can get some of your questions answered. This is the kind of science outreach that I find really effective. When people get a chance to actually tune in live and ask questions, hopefully it makes you feel like you're really here, you know? From the comfort of an air-conditioned building. Not out here in the rain and the wind and the bugs and the dust. You can hopefully share in that thrill of discovery while being very comfortable. Oh, from KT Diggs, how do we know how old the dinosaurs are? That is a fantastic question, yeah. So here, we have an answer for that, for how old these dinosaurs are, but it's not very precise. So the rocks that we're digging in here are from what we call the Almond Formation. That's the late Cretaceous period. We can look at this lovely infographic from artist Ray Troll. So the age of dinosaurs is here, the Mesozoic era. The Cretaceous period is the uppermost one, and we're here toward the end of the Cretaceous. This is about 7 million years before you have dinosaurs like T-Rex and Triceratops showing up. And what's exciting is these rocks, about 73 million years old, are not well studied, and there's no dinosaurs named from here. So just about anything we find is going to be new. It's going to be scientifically important. We might get to name it. It should be really cool. But the reason why we know these rocks are about 73 million years old is because rocks above and below have already been radiometrically dated. So there's a few different methods that we can use for dating radioactive rocks that we find in these formations. My analogy that I like to use is that radioactive isotopes in the rocks are kind of like an hourglass, where you turn over an hourglass and the sand goes through. And if you know how long it takes for all the sand to go through, you know how long it's been since it's been turned over. We can do the same thing with radioactive isotopes in the rocks. So some of these, it'll decay from one kind of isotope into another after the rock gets deposited. And so if you can basically, test that and you see the proportions of the different isotopes, it's like you can tell how much sand has gone through, proverbially speaking. So yeah, we do not yet have an exact date for this geological formation, so we say it's about 73 million years old, but we're hopefully going to be able to find some radioactive isotopes and actually test it directly, so we'll have a more firm date for these rocks here. But yeah, that's more work we're going to have to do later this summer, try and find some volcanic ashes with radioactive isotopes in them. Yeah, and let's see, do we have any other questions? I should talk for a minute while we're waiting about the almond formation. Again, these rocks are very understudied, but back in the 1930s, there was a guy who was here finding dinosaurs, and his name was Barnum Brown. Some of you in the audience are already aware of Barnum Brown here. He worked for the American Museum of Natural History in New York. He's the guy who discovered Tyrannosaurus Rex. So at the Carnegie, you folks are really lucky. You've got the holotype specimen, the original Tyrannosaurus specimen. That one was dug up by Barnum Brown. So yeah, a couple decades after he found T-Rex, he came out here to Wyoming and was finding dinosaurs out here in the Almond Formation. He found a whole bunch of them, but for whatever reason, he never published on them, and he never named them. And this formation has sat kind of neglected ever since then. Ethan Cowgill, our expedition lead, he had the idea about 5 or 6 years ago to come out here and start looking for dinosaurs again, and lo and behold, he started finding a bunch of them. So we've been coming out here every summer since then and helping him out, finding more dinosaurs, excavating them, and then sending them to a couple different museums. One of those museums is the Carnegie Museum. So you've got some of these fossils right there, working on cleaning them, and again, we're tremendously grateful for the support that you've given us. Yeah, let's see if we've got any other questions. Oh, thank you, Lenina, for reposting. How will we determine if it's a new species? That's an excellent question, too. So like I said, this is a duckbill dinosaur here. We can tell by the shape of multiple bones that it's got. We are certain that this is a duckbill. But how would we know that it's a new species? Well, most of that work is going to be done in the laboratory. So after we get this thing back to the museum, some fossil preparators will work on it. They'll open up the jacket, they'll chip away the rock very, very carefully with very fine, precise tools, and then they'll get those bones all cleaned, ready for study, and then you compare those bones to the bones of other duckbill dinosaurs. And if they're different enough, it can become clear that we've got a new species. That's what we're hoping for, and we think that chances are really, really good that we've got a new species here, but time will tell. It's only after the bones get cleaned up in the museum do we absolutely know for certain. So I hope that answers that question. It's a good one. Yeah. And let's see, we've got some other questions in my chat. How do we know, what do we know about our dinosaur so far? We know that it's big, we know that it's a duckbill, we know that it's disarticulated, so most of it has fallen apart. The bones are not in life position. And we think there's a good chance it's a new species, but like I said, we won't know till we get those bones back to the museum, get them cleaned and prepped. Yeah. Good stuff. And KT Diggs, thank you. Another question from the audience. Can chemistry help us determine what species we've found? Unfortunately, no, not really. People ask me a lot, like, oh, can you do DNA testing? Like we can do with modern animals to try and figure out if it's a new species. And the answer is no, unfortunately. DNA is a very fragile molecule. It tends to degrade pretty quickly. Within a couple million years, there's no DNA that's left. So for a dinosaur that's 73 million years old, the chance is basically zero. There are crews that are trying to find DNA in dinosaur bones, but nobody's been able to yet. And people have been trying for about 30, maybe 40 years at this point, with no luck. So what we have to do to determine whether it's a new dinosaur is do what we call gross morphology. You're looking at the osteology, the bone structure of the animal, because that's the evidence that we have. Paleontology is all about taking the limited information that we've got and figure out what's going on. So unfortunately, DNA or any other kind of like chemical signatures that can determine what kind of dinosaur it is, you know, whether it's a new species, whether it's not, who it's related to, all of that stuff comes from the structure of the bones themselves and what they look like. Yeah. And what time period is this dinosaur from? Yeah, so like I said, this is from the late Cretaceous period, about 73 million years old. And so this is going to be probably right on the cusp of the Campanian and Maastrichtian stages. So just before you get that classic like Hell Creek Formation fauna, where you get Tyrannosaurus and Triceratops and Pachycephalosaurus. This guy is about 7 million years before those guys, from the late Cretaceous. So from almost at the end of the age of dinosaurs. And that's when some of these duckbill dinosaurs get really, really big. So it's not surprising that ours here is gigantic. We're pretty excited about that. Yeah. And we got some other questions in the chat. How many dinosaurs did Barnum Brown publish? So he published a few dinosaurs during his lifetime, but mostly it was his boss who published the majority of the papers, I think. Henry Fairfield Osborn is the guy who published Tyrannosaurus, even though Barnum Brown found it. Barnum Brown was much more of a field guy. He'd go out and dig the dinosaurs up. He did publish a fair number of different species during his lifetime. I'm having trouble remembering them off the top of my head. But he wasn't so much a publications guy as he was a fieldwork man. Some of us can relate to that. Yeah. And we've got another question. Why is it called the Almond Formation? It's usually geological formations like that are named after a place, and so we think there was probably a small town nearby called Almond or something like that, but that might be lost to history. Nobody seems to be quite sure why it got called the Almond Formation. That's something that's still a little bit of a mystery. Yeah. And, KT Diggs, thank you again for posting that question from the Carnegie Museum. Do we know anything about the predatory dinosaurs from this time? We do. We know about predatory dinosaurs from other parts of North America around this time. We know that we had great big tyrannosaurs, things like Daspletosaurus walking around. This guy. So sort of like an earlier, slightly smaller tyrannosaur than T-Rex. There's some debate over whether T-Rex actually evolved from Daspletosaurus or whether it evolved from a tyrannosaur that walked over from Asia across the land bridge. But yeah, we know we've got tyrannosaurs. Those are going to be our big kind of apex predatory dinosaurs at this time. We know that we've got dromaeosaurs, your classic like raptor dinosaurs, like from Jurassic Park. They were around at the time too. But we haven't found any good pieces of any of those guys so far over the last 5 years. Fingers crossed that we do. Hopefully they'll start turning up, because that would be really exciting. We expect to find them out here, but we haven't yet. So again, cross your fingers we find a tyrannosaur or a dromaeosaur. That would be incredible. Yeah. Yeah. And can I explain the fossilization process? Chat's moving pretty fast. Are we finding the bone or mineralized replacement? That's a great question, yeah. I'm not an expert in this particular area. Fossilization, diagenesis, that's kind of outside of my wheelhouse, but my understanding is that when we have fossil bones like the ones here, you have some of the original material still in there. So some of the minerals that are in the original bone, like hydroxyapatite, that's also in the fossil. But then a lot of the other organic stuff, the softer material, that tends to get replaced by minerals. So in essence, fossils are kind of a mixture of the original hard parts, the original mineral in the bone or shell or tooth or whatever, and then stuff that element has borrowed from the surrounding strata. So you get minerals in the surrounding rocks and in the groundwater that kind of leach in, and then they make it so that those bones will last for a really, really long time. If you just bury a regular bone in the ground and then it doesn't have minerals that seep into it, it'll rot away in a number of, years or decades. But sometimes bones get really lucky, they get fossilized, and then they're around for tens of millions of years buried in the rock. It's pretty cool how that works, and we're pretty lucky that geology on our planet Earth yields as many fossils as it does, because that gives us a beautiful window into the history of life on our planet, one that we wouldn't have otherwise. I should also add that fossil bones are much, much, much heavier than the original bone. The original bone would be very lightweight compared to when it gets fossilized. The bone is essentially partly turning into rock when it gets fossilized, and as a result, it's much heavier, usually more brittle. And yeah, let's see if we got any other questions. Excellent. Have any of you found any raptors before? Ooh, good question. I gotta think about that. It depends how you define raptor, but in 2015, a member of my crew found a beautiful claw of an alvarezsaur dinosaur, like Mononychus. And that animal we were actually able to name. It's from the Hell Creek Formation. It's called Trirarchuncus. It's a little clawed theropod dinosaur. The name means Captain Hook, because it's got one big ridiculous claw on each hand. They were weird little guys. So, I don't know, some people use the word raptor to refer to like all Maniraptoran theropod dinosaurs. Some people use it to refer to dromaeosaurs. I found some teeth of dromaeosaurs, of raptors, in the Hell Creek and the Judith River formations. And I'm sure we've got some other members of the crew who might have as well. Maybe not, though. I don't know. Luke, have you ever found any dromaeosaur material? Ever worked on any of those guys?
I found teeth.
Teeth, nice.
In the Hell Creek.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And then I found potentially some stuff in the Morrison done, but that's hard to say if that's actually dromaeosaur.
Yeah, yeah.
Like a Ornitholestes.
We still don't really know whether Ornitholestes was a dromaeosaur or what's going on with that guy. But yeah. Yeah, thanks, Luke. Yeah.
Absolutely.
These guys tend to be pretty rare. Yeah. Yeah, they tend to be really lightweight, hollow-boned, delicate critters. So they're not as easy to fossilize as something like a hadrosaur. And being smaller, they can be more difficult to find, too. Often your bigger dinosaurs are more obvious. And we got a great question. I was hoping somebody would ask about the paleo environment here. Thank you, Katie, for typing that in. What was this area like when these dinosaurs were alive? Very, very different from how it is now. So you look out across this landscape and you see kind of a high desert environment, sagebrush, it's very dry. We're about 6,000 or 7,000 feet elevation here in Wyoming, which can make it quite the chore to hike up from the trucks every day carrying 50 pounds of water and stuff. I'm sure many of you in the audience can imagine what that's like. But it wasn't like this 73 million years ago. Totally different. This area has underseen a lot of change. So it wasn't 6,000 feet elevation, it was sea level back then. So imagine this whole landscape here, but take these mountains and squish them down. So it's this wide, flat plain out here. And then just over there, you've got the Western Interior Seaway. So we were right here on the coast 73 million years ago. There we go. This is a rough approximation of what North America looked like at the time. And you see right in the middle right there, we've got this shallow, semi-tropical sea. Kind of picture like the Caribbean, but right smack dab in the middle of North America. So like Kansas and Nebraska and much of Wyoming right here outlined in red, was underwater. And so here on the shoreline, here on the coast, the environment would have looked kind of like present-day Louisiana. Or like a, yeah.
Are you gonna jack it with us?
Maybe in a minute, yeah.
We're gonna get started here soon.
Awesome, cool, yeah. I'm not sure how much longer we got with the Carnegie Museum, but let me get through this question. Yeah. So yeah, picture this environment not like it is today, but much more wet, warm, kind of subtropical, kind of like present-day Louisiana Bayou or like the Mississippi Delta. You had all kinds of kind of crocodile-like animals, crocodiliforms. You had little mammals scurrying around in the underbrush. You had cool predatory fishes swimming around in the lakes and the rivers and the ponds, and then on the land and maybe tromping through the swamps as well, you had dinosaurs. You had tyrannosaurs and horned dinosaurs and our duckbill dinosaur too. So I hope that gives you kind of a picture of what this environment was like, and I hope that gives you an appreciation for how much things can change in just 73 million years. Oh, and another question, are dinosaurs always found in hot climates, or can they be in other places? No. There was an old idea that dinosaurs were cold-blooded, that they were kind of lizard-like animals, that they thrived because the Earth was so much hotter back then. That idea has kind of been disproven in a lot of ways. We now know dinosaurs lived as far north as the Arctic Circle and as far south as Antarctica. In fact, Dr. Matt Lamana there at the Carnegie, he's dug up a fair number of Antarctic dinosaur fossils. So there were dinosaurs that were there at basically at the North Pole and the South Pole, living in the snow and the ice. And even though Earth was warmer during the Mesozoic generally than it is today, at certain times in certain places you did still have snow and ice. Dinosaurs still thrived in those environments, we think. So, yeah, it's pretty cool to think about, you know. Maybe some older folks in the audience might be surprised by that, but dinosaur paleontology will surprise you. We're finding out new things all the time. It's a very dynamic science. And let's see here. We're almost out of time here at the Carnegie. Okay. If someone is interested in paleontology, what should they study in school and how do they get involved in fieldwork? Excellent question. So, paleontology, the study of fossils, is kind of an interesting mix of biology and geology. So if you study those two subjects and you learn a lot about them and you take classes in those subjects, you're going to set yourself up pretty well to become a paleontologist. My best piece of advice that I can give to any young aspiring paleontologist in the chat though, or in the audience too, back at the Carnegie, if you want to become a paleontologist, get involved in your local museum if you can. Again, you folks there in Pittsburgh are so lucky that you've got this world-class institution there. See if you can get involved. Maybe see if you can volunteer. Go to museum events. Get to know the paleontologists there. Make some connections. Again, you're very, very lucky to have this place right there in your backyard. And again, support your museum. The Carnegie is such a gem. Do whatever you can to make sure that they can continue their work here, and that we've got people there cleaning up our dinosaurs here so that we can go out and dig up more of them. This is how paleontology works. This is how we advance our science. It's because of good folks like you that this sort of thing is possible. So support your museum. Thank you again very much to the Carnegie Museum. And yeah, I guess you can turn off the screen whenever you'd like to. This has been an honor, everybody. I really appreciate you. Hope you have a great rest of Dino Fest, and take care, everybody. Stay curious. Time for a few more questions? Let me know. Favorite part might be the fieldwork. Getting out here and being able to dig up new dinosaurs is incredibly exciting. It's a real adventure, you know? But it's not for personal fame, fortune, or glory. It's part of an enterprise that's larger than any one of us. We get to be part of this grand scientific endeavor, and that's tremendously fulfilling. And again, it's because of institutions like the Carnegie and because of supporters of the Carnegie Museum that we could do this. Without that kind of support, you know, this sort of thing wouldn't be possible. So thank you again. Yeah. Yeah. And another question from KT Diggs. How long do you have to prospect before finding anything? It depends where you are. Sometimes there's bone all over the place, and sometimes it's a very different color from the surrounding rock. It's easy to spot. Sometimes it's much trickier. It really depends, you know. Out here in the Almond Formation, and certain times you might go out for a day or two and not find a single scrap of bone. Sometimes you walk 5 minutes from the truck and you find a skeleton. So it's kind of luck of the draw out here. Yeah. Thank you so much, Janine. We appreciate you so much. Thank you, Katie, for relaying these questions. And again, thank you to everybody there at the Carnegie Museum. You don't know how much we appreciate you. I keep saying it. I sound like a broken record, but support your museum, good folks of Pittsburgh. This is how this science happens. It's through institutions like the Carnegie. So I'm honored to be here. It's been a privilege sharing this with you, and I'll see everybody later. Take care. We'll be doing another one of these this afternoon, so if any audience members want to stick around, yeah, we'll have some other stuff going on in the quarry too. Anyway, excellent. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. Let's see. I don't know if I'm still on screen there in Pittsburgh, but we might continue our stream here on Twitch for a little while. Yeah.
You want to do just a little bit, a tiny bit of a skirt out there, so
How are you doing, Twitch chat? I hope everything's going well. The reason why we're streaming early today is we're doing a special event for Dino Fest at the Carnegie Pittsburgh. They're 2 hours ahead of us here, and so we got to the site extra early today, and we're doing some special broadcast auditorium. And yeah, this has been a lot of fun. Cool stuff. Thank you again. Thank you, Katie. Are we off screen now? Let me know. No longer on screen. Okay, beautiful. Thank you, thank you. Good stuff. And we do have some other questions? Absolutely, Lenina. Yeah. I can totally answer some of those extra questions there. I already answered that one, Claire, about predatory dinosaurs. And Seku-sama says, so finding fossils is mostly luck? No, it's luck and skill. You know, like Matt Lamana says, it's kind of like fishing, you know? If you're really bad at fishing, you're not going to catch anything. But also, at the same time, you could be really good at fishing, and if the fish just say no, then what are you going to do, you know? Looking for fossils is much the same way. So the way that prospecting works is first you got to do a lot of homework. Got to find out what kinds of fossils are you looking for, and how old are they? How long ago did those critters live? You got to look at your geological maps and find places where you have that age of rock exposed on the surface. So you kind of cross-reference with your geological maps and with maybe satellite images. And then, once you've highlighted some spots that seem to be worth exploring, you go out there and you start looking around. We call this prospecting. And so what that entails is walking along slowly, looking at the ground, trying to see, this looks unusual. Is this anything? Could this be an egg? No. This is just a lump of sandstone right here with some lichen on it. But you pick up anything that looks unusual, and you're looking for bone. So it can be tedious, it can take a long time, but when you find something, oh, what is this right here? Well. Bone right here. Look at that. So you're looking for bone texture there. Bone texture. You, this is part of a bone. This is not just rock. This is fossil bone. And so this can be... So, you might walk up further. You continue along, picking things up. Is this bone? No. You should pick up lots of different chunks all the time because you never know when something will turn out to be bone. This is not either. Keep going like that. You try and follow it uphill to the source where it's coming out. And sometimes you get really lucky. Like, here, I got a good feeling about this area up here. What are those? That is intriguing. Look at that texture there on those big chunks. What could this be? Well, well, well. Look at that. Internal spongy bone texture. Got a big chunk of dinosaur bone right here. Look at that. This is from a big limb bone too. This is not some spindly little rib. This is not a strappy little skull bone. This is some big chunky limb bone right here. And we've got an even bigger piece right here. Look at that. So we found these, what, 2 weeks ago? And unfortunately these don't seem to be leading anywhere, but we just keep them here as kind of like a reference for the streams. It's fun to pick them up and show people what it's like to prospect for bone. Unfortunately, there may have been a dinosaur skeleton up here like maybe a few hundred years ago, and it's just been completely eroded. Just a few pieces left. But that's how it goes out here. You walk along, you find bone, and you hope it turns into something. And sometimes it does, like it has at our hadrosaur site. Again, down here. That's how this site was originally discovered. As I think Logan and Tren were here, they found bone spilling down the hillside, and that turned into, well, a whole site. And Vexy says, how come more of Barnum Brown's findings didn't get published? Couldn't others look at his findings, compile it, and publish it later? That did happen a little bit. There is a horned dinosaur from the Almond Formation that's been published, that Barnum Brown found back in 1937 or 38. But it was incomplete enough that nobody wanted to name it, which is good for us because we found what we think is more of the same animal, same species, potentially. And now that we have more of it. That's the plan anyway. You know, publication is a really, it takes a lot of effort. It's a tremendous amount of effort to be able to dig up a dinosaur, get it cleaned, get it prepared, get it reposited in the museum, and then, yeah, it can take years just publishing the darn thing after you already get it written up. And so there are so many different dinosaur skeletons that have been dug up and never published before. The thing is, there's not that many paleontologists who work on dinosaurs to be able to publish these things, so there's a big backlog. Unfortunately, paleontology is not a very well-funded science. We tend not to be well paid if we get paid at all. And so, yeah, there are not very many dinosaur paleontologists in the world. Yeah. It's kind of nuts. There are so many fossils out there still to be discovered. There's so many fossils that have already been dug up that are waiting to be studied and published on. And then there are things that are in the process of publication, but that alone might take years to go through peer review. You might have a backlog in that particular journal where you might have to wait a year or so before it gets published. There's a lot of stuff like that. Yeah. C-Film says, what is the most funded science? Shoot, I don't know. Probably anything that could be militarized, anything that could be weaponized. Can't really do that with dinosaurs. So, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I have thoughts on this, but I will hold my tongue for now. Pacifist that I am. Yeah. Anywho. Yeah. And oh, could have been perceived as almond colored. That would make a lot of sense, Ash Odinson. Thank you for looking at that. Yeah, dark browns and white shades. Yeah. Anyway, we've got the guys jacketing here. Very nice. Would you need another set of hands? Should I wrap this up?
I think we're okay. We're all right.
Okay, cool. And we'll have even more reinforcements showing up later, too.
Yeah, Nick's bringing some big things of wood.
Nice.
For stabilization. So.
Excellent.
2x4s.
Some 2x4s? Beautiful. That'll be great.
All right, Ethan, I'm going to give you a big piece here, okay?
Yeah, I'm going to cover what I just did.
Sweet.
Actually,
Yeah, so for those of you who missed yesterday's stream, this is the jacketing process. So what Luke's got right there is a big strip of burlap soaked in plaster of Paris. It's like a big old bandage. And we take these, put them over the top of the jacket to help reinforce it. This is going to be like 1,000-pound plus jacket here, really heavy. So we need a lot of layers to help reinforce it. Plaster by itself would be really heavy and brittle, but plaster combined with burlap gives us a lot of tensile strength. It prevents, twisting and torque and stuff like that. It's exactly what we want.
Yeah, from what I understand, the method of burlap and plaster has been pretty much unchanged since the original paleontological explorations in the American West.
Who'd you hear that from?
Ethan.
Nice.
We were over at the Barnum Brown site.
Oh, nice.
And we're doing the same thing.
I said that just a little while ago at the beginning of the stream, so I thought you were making a joke.
No.
I heard this from somebody. Yeah.
Oh, I thought I heard a man in passing.
But yeah, I think it was Othniel Charles Marsh's cruise back in the 1870s. They figured this out back then, and we've been doing it the same way pretty much ever since.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
A link to the past.
Yeah. Yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, It's like, we haven't been able to come up with a better method.
That's the ethos in the wilderness.
Yeah, 150 years, doing it the same way we always used to. But it makes a lot of sense, chat, when you think about it. We're often working in really remote areas. We don't have electricity. We don't have, tremendous capacity for bringing in lots and lots of supplies. We often don't have heavy equipment. But we can carry burlap, we can carry dry plaster, and we need water at the site for drinking. You just bring some more water to make jackets, and it's also inexpensive. Like I said, paleontology is not a well-funded science in general. And so we can do this for real cheap, and it's effective. Yeah. And good stuff. Do inflatable jackets exist? I've never seen one, Urban Mank. But, yeah. And... Oh, Ken, there we go. Yeah. Rumor has it that Felch, who was one of the field hands on Marsh's cruise, I think, was a medic in the Civil War and brought it over from that. That would make a lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah, the first great dinosaur rush, also known as like the Bone Wars, was in the 1870s through the 1880s. And a lot of those guys were Civil War veterans. Not Cope and Marsh themselves. They were both East Coast fancy boys who fled to Europe so they didn't get drafted during the Civil War. Must be nice, right? But a lot of the guys who worked on their crews were Civil War veterans. And that may have been where they first learned, a lot of the skills that they used in the field. Stuff like camping, acquiring water, and stuff like this too. Yeah. But thank you, Ken. I hope you're doing well. Looking forward to seeing you this afternoon or this evening. The Marsh Felch Quarry. Nice. Yeah. Cool. I wonder how long it took for Cope's crews to start doing the same thing, because as I understand it, they also made plaster jackets too. There was a lot of guys moved back and forth from Marsh to Cope depending on who was paying better and that kind of thing. These two rival paleontologists, Othniel Charles Marsh and Edward Drinker Cope, they were competing to see who could find and name the most, fossil critters. It was one of the grandest rivalries in the history of science, and kind of a tragic story in a lot of ways. Neither of those guys made it out of the Bone Wars alive. Well, everybody dies, but it was their competition that probably shortened both of their lives, and they both ended up essentially dying in poverty. They kind of gave their lives to this endeavor, and I don't know, I like to think that they both would have been happier and healthier and more productive if they just worked together rather than competing in the way that they did. They hated each other, and hatred can do awful things to a person. Yeah. Long enough for the spy letter. There you go, Ken. Yeah. Can't wait to be out there with y'all? Yeah. Excellent, Ken. We'll see if we can get you on stream tomorrow. Yeah. But, anywho. We've been going for an hour at this point, and I gotta go check on my battery, make sure we're doing okay. Because we're gonna have round 2 of today's streams in just a little bit. with the Carnegie Museum. We're going to have a live studio audience back there in Pittsburgh. And I got to make sure I've got enough juice for that, so we don't want to use up all of our battery right now. Let's see what we're at. Hopefully we're doing pretty well. Let's see here. 90%? Yeah. Nice. I've been going for an hour without a drink of water, so let me do that. And Anodyne Quinine says, have there been any digs in Antarctica? A bunch, yeah. Yeah, Matt LaManna, who is there in Pittsburgh, kind of moderating the live event there. They're having their special Dino Fest event today. Matt LaManna's done a bunch of field work in Antarctica. And, man, I want to join him the next time he goes down there. It's a dream of mine to be able to, you know, go dig fossils on the great southern continent. Maybe someday, inshallah, we shall see. Yeah. Yeah. Let me drink some water and then answer some more of these questions. Let's see here. Do you have a favorite dig site? That's a tough one. Shoot. You know, you never forget your first. At least I don't. I think one of the first sites I ever worked at was the Yoshi's Trike Quarry in Garfield County, Montana, in the Hell Creek. So this was a Triceratops that holds the record for the longest brow horns, the horns above the eyes, on any Triceratops ever found. I got to help dig that up in 2011, and that was pretty extraordinary. Yeah, I was one of the youngest members of the crew. It was my first year digging dinosaurs, and that was magical. That was back when Museum of the Rockies had big crews, too. That was the last year they did. And, yeah, it was pretty awesome being out there with like 20 other people from around the world, being able to learn from these, you know, skilled veteran paleontologists. I was a kid in a candy store, you know. I was probably a little annoying at the time too, being a 19-year-old who'd grown up as a dinosaur-obsessed kid, and now there I am in the field. It was something. But shout out to Denver Fowler and Lee Hall, who led that crew, and they're now doing really cool things in Montana and North Dakota. Lee Hall now works for Museum of the Rockies full-time. I think he might be their lab manager and like their field crew chief. He's one of the head honchos there. And Denver Fowler is now curator of the Badlands Dinosaur Museum in Dickinson, North Dakota. We visited him back in February. We went to the museum there and did some streams, and that was a blast. It was really cool. Maybe we'll go again in the next couple of years. That would be pretty awesome. Yeah. And Seiko-sama says, why are some dinosaurs so big? Diet? Environment? That's a great question. So it seems like, I don't know, some people say, well, dinosaurs must have gotten big because there was less gravity back then, or it was hotter, or some sort of thing like that, like they had some sort of cheat code. No. The answer is sauropod dinosaurs in particular, your long-necked plant-eating dinosaurs. These guys were able to get so tremendously big because they were so lightweight. That's a big part of it, is that they had hollow bones, they had air sacs, they had an avian respiratory system, and so that allowed them to get super gigantic, way bigger than any mammal has ever been able to get on land. They were just incredibly efficient animals, and they would have been very efficient in the way that they ate too, so they could consume a tremendous number of calories in a relatively short amount of time, we think. That and also things like laying eggs allow them to get really big too. So rather than being like an elephant, where you have just one enormous baby every 3 years or something if you're lucky, these guys could have hundreds of babies at a time from little eggs, no bigger than a soccer ball at the very largest. And that allowed their bodies to get so much larger because they didn't have to like leave space for an enormous embryo in there. There's a number of other things too, like their digestive system, just having a really, really long series of intestines would have allowed them to just process food really efficiently, just be able to suck out whatever nutrients they could get from the plants that they're eating. Yeah, there's a lot of different factors, but the number one thing that I want to hammer home is that these guys were lightweight. They had air sacs and hollows all throughout their body. So they're just much more efficient than like an equivalent size mammal. An equivalent size mammal would be much heavier, slower, denser, more sluggish. These guys would have been graceful, just beautiful animals. Very efficient in just about everything they did. Yeah. Yeah. Zlalok says, so the big sauropods were light on their feet like Fred Flintstone? Sure, Zlalok. Sure. And most big dinosaurs had hollow bones, says Shamu Khan? Not most big dinosaurs, but the sauropods and the theropods. So the two-legged meat-eating dinosaurs, many of them had hollow bones. In fact, you could say they were very bird-like. Birds today have hollow bones. They have an avian respiratory system. You know where they got that from? They got that from their dinosaur ancestors. Birds didn't invent those things. Those are dinosaur hand-me-downs that they inherited. The reason that birds are such masters of the air today is because their dinosaur ancestors already had super efficient lungs, air sacs, pneumatic diverticula, also probably a high metabolism. They were warm-blooded, and yeah. On the other side of the dinosaur family tree, though, your ornithischian dinosaurs, like our big duckbill down here, these guys did not have the same kind of hollow bones, and so they didn't get as big. So our big duckbill here might be kind of approaching the ceiling for how big these animals could get. Like, it might be only possible for them to get so big. These guys might be approaching that limit, as opposed to the sauropods, the other side of the dinosaur family tree where they've got those hollow bones. Does that make sense? Yeah. And Jim says sauropods do not have hollow bones, Danny. I didn't mean hollow bones like their limb bones, but I mean those pneumatic diverticulae that they have in their axial skeleton. They've got their vertebrae all shot through with hollows. There's that wonderful figure in that paper by Kerry Woodruff showing all of those blue spaces in the bones that would have been air. Like, it's just nuts to think about. It's really, really cool. By the way, we've got Jim here in the chat. That is paleontologist Jim Kirkland from the Utah Geological Survey. So yeah. And Zlalok says, did the big plant-eating dinosaurs likely have a gizzard system to help break down the plant matter? So that's an old idea, that they would have swallowed stones that would roll around in their gizzard and help grind up the plants. That idea, as I understand it, has kind of fallen by the wayside. I've had long conversations with people like Oliver Wings who strongly dispute that idea. They say there's no evidence for a gastric mill, a gizzard like that with stones in sauropod dinosaurs. So I don't know. I don't actually work on sauropods. I don't necessarily have a horse in that fight. But
This strip here.
yeah. I think the growing consensus is that they didn't actually do that. They didn't actually swallow stones. But more work is needed. And Jim says the idea of mixing stones, that's an idea too. Yeah, I've talked about this with Jim before. But yeah, Oliver Wings is like, nope, they didn't do that either. So I don't know. Yeah, there's dispute about this. And Peter Steve says, is there proof that dinosaurs ate healthy or have poor diets? It depends how you define that, eating healthy, having poor diets. Animals eat what they eat to survive, and they survive or they don't. That's a tough one. We can look at sometimes preserved stomach contents in dinosaurs, but that might not give us the best clue for what those animals had evolved to eat, though. Because if you have the preserved skeleton of a dinosaur with gut contents, with food still in its guts, that tells you what the animal ate right before it died. Did it die because it ate the wrong thing? Was it during a drought or something like that where they couldn't get enough food, so they're just, you've got duckbill dinosaurs eating pine needles because they're starving and there's nothing else to eat? Maybe that doesn't mean that they regularly ate pine needles. Maybe that just means that's a desperate situation and they died right after. Gut contents can be tricky like that. Determining the diet of dinosaurs in general can be tricky. There's whole groups where we don't necessarily know what they were eating. We can speculate about the diets of ornithomimosaurs or oviraptorosaurs, these guys who don't have teeth. Maybe they were herbivores, maybe they were carnivores, maybe they were omnivores. A good way to test that would be to use isotopic data, to look at isotopes in the teeth and stuff like that, to try and figure out if they had like a meat-heavy diet or not. But yeah, that's outside of my realm of expertise as well. I don't know a whole lot about stable isotopes. But yeah, it's tricky trying to figure out what exactly the diet of certain dinosaurs was. Troodontids. They're part of a meat-eating dinosaur family, but did they eat plants too? They've got all these little leaf-shaped teeth, with all of these big cusps on them, these big serrations. Does that indicate an herbivorous diet? Or omnivorous, or what? We're not sure. Yeah, go away, flies. Goodness. There's one fly. He will not leave me alone. Big old horsefly. Yeah. And Jonion says, do you have a favorite dinosaur bone? Shoot. It would be different for different groups of dinosaurs. Let's see. I'm going to say the dentary across dinosaurs, the lower jawbone. That's always a good one. One of the tooth-bearing bones. They can tell you a lot about a particular dinosaur. If you can only find one bone of any dinosaur, dentary's a good one to find. Yeah. Anywho. And... Thanks, Luke.
Tend to agree.
Yeah. Maxilla would be a good one too, but
Either one.
yeah.
Max looks good.
Dentary's nice. Dentary's like cuter,
Yeah.
You're like holding most of the lower jaw in your hands when you've got a dentary. Yeah. Anywho, we'll wrap this up before too long because I got to make sure that we've got enough battery and I don't wear myself out before the. I think it'll be in 45 minutes. We start our next stream with the Carnegie Museum. But yeah. And what percentage of the full fossil do you think is there? Says Loot Vegetable. Great question. Yeah. Here we've got one femur, potentially two femurs, probably a tibia, some vertebrae, some ossified tendons, and some maybe metatarsals, maybe part of the hip. I'm guessing we've got about maybe 20% of the dinosaur, and those two lumps right there, the big white one and the brown one under the tarp. But we're hoping that we find even more. Part of what we're doing today is knocking down, well, we're trying to get this jacketed so that we can knock down more of the rock here, and we might find more bone just behind. That's the hope. We shall see. Yeah. Hope that makes sense. Yeah. And Jim says the maxilla is more diagnostic. It is, but it's not as cute as a dentary is. Yeah, it's really nice to have much of the lower jaw just there in your hand. It's pretty neat. Yeah. And F the Chaotic says, what was it like during your first dig? Was it unbearably hot? I didn't really notice it that much. I don't know. I was just really happy to be out there. We moved a tremendous amount of rock at that Triceratops quarry, so I spent about 3 weeks swinging a pick under the hot sun, shoveling rocks with a shovel. Yeah, I got a really good tan that year. But yeah, I don't know. After a while, it's just like you almost enjoy the heat. It's like, yeah, just body temperature outside, or warmer. It got up to like 110, I think, that summer. Yeah, you drink lots of water. You take little breaks in the shade if you've got it. but just that feeling of discovery and the camaraderie with your crewmates, it can get you through a lot. Yeah. Good stuff. And Starmy says, would finding 20% of a specimen be a lot in your field? I mean, well, 20% is certainly a big animal. Like, this is an animal the size of a bus. We find 20% of it, that's a lot. Like, it's big. Yeah, 20%'s not bad. It's not bad. We're hoping we get more, though. We've got a few different hadrosaur sites from the Almond Formation here. Some of them with skull, some of them with entirely post-crania, so all the post-skull bones. Or, not all of the post-skull bones, but just bones behind the skull. So yeah, it's, if they all belong to the same species, all these different hadrosaur specimens, which they might, we might, between these different sites, between these different individuals, have much of the skeleton. Maybe even close to a complete skeleton when you put all the pieces side by side. So, yeah, each one of these sites is definitely important. And we very well might have multiple species here. We might have a Saurolophine and a Lambeosaurine, which would be awesome. We'd have 2 new species. Who knows? We gotta get these bones back to the lab and get them cleaned. Yeah. Yeah, anywho. And there you go, Peter Steves. Yeah, sometimes you can get, a whole bunch of different elements from the skeleton, but then they're not particularly useful. Hadrosaurs are kind of a pain like this. And that's, if you could have like an entire post-cranium and still not be 100% sure that you've got, which taxon you've got. Because much of the stuff is like, most of the diagnostic elements are in the skull. There's a few in the hips and stuff like that, but for the most part, the skull is what you want. But we're hoping here, now that we've got a few sites with skull bones, and we've got a few sites without, that we can get more or less a complete atlas of what this dinosaur skeleton looked like, provided that they're all the same species, which they might not be. Again, there's so many question marks. Yeah. So it's not all in the hips? No, Zlalak, definitely not. A lot of it is in the skull. Yeah. Anyway, I have got to drink some more water, let the battery charge up, and charge up my own body, eat some food before our next Carnegie stream, which is going to be in 45 minutes. Oh, and why is the skull the most important, says True Love? For a number of reasons. Shoot, that's where all the sense organs are in the body. So you've got your eyes, you got your brain, you got your mouth, the teeth are in there. The teeth can be really important. The head is also just the part that evolves the fastest, generally. In dinosaurs, the skull is like, if you got to find one region of the body, that's the one that you want. You want to find the skull. Dinosaur skulls vary more than any other part of the skeleton, generally speaking. So if you're going to find unique characteristics anywhere, chances are they're going to be in the skull. Everywhere else, you got to look a lot harder. Does that make sense? Yeah. And ended on quinine. Yes, indeed, 3D scanners and printers have had a big effect, and they will continue to. I'm going to see about getting myself a proper 3D scanner at some point soon, doing some museum visits, and yeah, that helps us to be able to study fossil bones from across the world without actually having to travel to a museum, If you can have a scan and you can 3D print something in your own laboratory or in your own office, it kind of democratizes things. It's really nice when you can have exact copies like that. Yeah, without even having to ship a cast across the world, let alone the original specimen. So anywho, I got to wrap this up, but I will be streaming again in about 45 minutes. So let's go see whom we can raid into right now, and gonna wrap this up for the time being. Who else is on Twitch at the moment? Let's see here. Nope, don't do that. Following. Let's see here. Let's go check in with. Let's do Dynamite Twins. Why don't we? Okay. There we go. Raid. Dino. Oop. How do you spell it again? Darn it. There we go. I think that'll do it. Excellent. Well, I hope to see you all again in about 45 minutes. But right now we're going to go right into Dynamite Twins and see what they're up to. I'm going to eat some food. I'm going to drink some water. I'm checking on the jacketing that's going on down here, but they look like they've got things under control. And yeah, we'll be doing another live stream with the Carnegie Museum in just a little. So take care, everybody. Thank you again to all the viewers, the raiders, the subscribers, the chatters, the moderators. Thank you, mods, for all of your hard work. And I hope to see you all again in less than an hour. Take care. Bye-bye.